Everyone's favorite young, spirited, headstrong detective returns for a new adventure in Enola Holmes 2, a Netflix original written and directed by Harry Bradbeer. Kind of reminds me of Red Stripe. It's beer! Hooray, blood beer! It was also written by Jack Thorne, who did Enola Holmes, as well as The Secret Garden, the recent Secret Garden, even though that movie has been made and remade and re-remade and re-re-re-remade so many goddamn times I've actually lost track. It's also based on a series of books by Nancy Springer, not to be confused with Jerry Springer because they have entirely different names, but Harry Bradbeer did direct the original Enola Holmes. They came out a couple years ago and took Netflix by storm, seemingly. I remember enjoying it, even if I had to kind of cobble together in my head what it actually was like. I do remember Millie Bobby Brown, who plays the titular's a funny word, but I'm not going to laugh. I'm going to be mature. Titular character, Enola Holmes, the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes. I know, a detective named Holmes that solves cases using ingenuity, able to figure out clues, and is just overall smarter and at times luckier than anybody else because they happen to be the titular, there's that word again, character, and they can figure out things that other people can't. This continues the adventures from the first Enola Holmes movie, and now she's trying to form her own detective agency, and then she gets wrapped up in a plot trying to figure out what happened to this missing girl that may or may not be wrapped up in this plot involving moving money around and secret workplace, environment issues and all this weird stuff going on and other missing girls. They're missing girls, but basically there are a bunch of missing girls, a bunch of girls that have died due to factory-related accidents, or possibly they just decided to go off somewhere else and there's nothing to see here, please disperse, nothing to see here. And Enola figures out that she must rely on friends, people from her past, and maybe people that she may or may not actually be in love with to help her solve this mystery before it becomes a piece of history. Enola Tales, woohoo. Okay, so again, the first Enola Holmes was fun. It was well done. It may have been a bit long in the tooth, and unfortunately this movie does kind of suffer from the same thing. Even though it is breezy for the most part, I remember thinking with the first Enola Holmes, they could have cut off about 10 to 15 minutes, and it probably would have been a little bit better, because some movies are stretched out a little bit too much. That being said, for like 85-90% of it, it was pretty breezy. This one's pretty much the same. I would argue this one's a little bit better, because now that they got the establishment of characters out of the way, we get to see the advancements of these particular characters, the developing relationships, like her relationship with Tewksbury, who's Louis Partridge, not to be confused with any member of the Partridge family. David Thewlis was in this. I probably totally butchered that name. And Henry Cavill returns, or rather steps into the Sherlock Holmes role, because unfortunately the guy that played Sherlock in the first one, even though it was more of a bit part, wasn't able to return. Scheduling conflicts, whatever it was. And it seems like they're also trying to aim for a third movie based solely on how they pace this one. Maybe a bit of a spoiler, but I don't think that really should be shocking, considering this was churned out just 2 years after the first one came out. So yeah, you have this plot going on. She has to figure out all these clues and figure out, what's this girl really missing? Was she killed? Is it real? Is it Memorex? And she's using her own ingenuity and fighting against gender roles and gender equality and all that, because there's this match factory where all these women are working, and they're kind of they're turned away if they're sick. It's called typhus. It's a plague sweeping all these women. Just women. That's a bit odd. Why would it just be affecting women, especially women working at this factory? Bit odd, this. And there's also other characters that are slotted into this, like Moriarty, and Sherlock Holmes is stumped by a case. And it turns out these particular cases are intertwined. It just ends up being a fun, breezy adventure that, for the most part, hits the mark. Again, there are a few issues. Sometimes the comedy doesn't quite hit, but there's a general feel of breeziness and fun and endearment about this. Yes, I found most of this movie endearing. Me, with my cold black heart, I found this endearing. And continuing how Enola and Tewksbury interacted with each other from the first one, now it seems like there might be a bit of a romance. Not a bad romance. No, it's Enola. Okay, sorry. Enough song references here. Essentially, there's flashbacks to her talking to her mother, played by Helena Bonham Carter. By Christ, can you tell that her and Tim Burton must have just had a great old time together, because they go with the same goddamn hairstylist. And there are other characters populated in this. And David plays he plays a man called Grail. And boy, he's just one of the goddamn creepiest guys out there. He's just so goddamn slimy. You almost have to take a goddamn pressure wash shower after seeing him. And it was funny how she got immediately slotted into taking on this case from this girl, Bessie. And there's kind of a housemaiden, so to speak, May. She's kind of the head of the house, and it's a house for wayward girls, and that's what Sarah was. And there's this other stuff going on where people have to work different jobs because women are not seen as equal to men, and that kind of gets driven home a whole lot to the point where it's like a ball-peen hammer, just boom, 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 hammering shit into your head. But in all honesty, it kind of fits with the pieces. And also, there are some true events that get wrapped into this movie, and it actually works. It works for the most part. Again, I have some complaints. Comedy doesn't always hit. Most often it does, and it is a bit long in the tooth. 15 minutes could have been trimmed off of this. I think there were a few moments where I'm like, okay, you could have cut some of this stuff. But nevertheless, it's overall mostly and very much endearing and quite enjoyable. If you enjoyed the first Enola Holmes, you're going to enjoy this one. So now we get into spoilers, because that's kind of how it's going to end up being. So it's on Netflix if you want to check it out. But anyway, 3, 2, 1, and she still talks to the camera like the first one. Spoilers. So yeah, if you didn't like that, her talking directly to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, then you're probably not going to like this, because she does it a few times. So, the stuff with Tewksbury, the Tewksbury character actually is kind of endearing. He's a lord, she's just a detective. Can they make it any more obvious? And after May ends up dead, Grail is suddenly there, and she's chased by the police, and we see her chased by the police in the very beginning of the movie. And that factors into this whole thing that's going on. And it turns out that Sarah actually was hiding in plain sight in front of Enola, because she had red hair. But then there's this woman with this blonde wig. Cecilia, you're breaking my heart. Okay, sorry, songs can't help but break out into that, even though I'm a bad singer. And even though Grail is hot on her trail, the Grail Trail, as it were, Monty Python, the Curse of the Holy Grail Trail. Ew, that kind of sounds kind of bad. She ends up posing to go to a ball to talk to William, who is the son of the guy heading the match factory. And William Lyon, as it were. He wasn't lying. Actually, he wasn't, because he was one of the few people trying to help. And there's this Mira Troy. And if you arrange the letters, Moriarty. What you get, by the way. She's Moriarty, just so you know. And it was kind of cool that there was a woman playing Moriarty. That was actually kind of neat. I'm not saying it's never been done in any other Sherlock Holmes adaptation, but pretty cool here. And they're trying to figure out all the stuff. Sherlock's stumped by this case. He's trying to protect his sister, but he also recognizes his sister has the ingenuity that he has, even if she's younger. And then Helena Bonham Carter ends up helping her out of jail after she's arrested, because after Enola's arrested for possibly murdering May. But obviously she didn't murder May, because it's going to be May. And, yeah. Sarah, it turns out, actually, again, was hiding in plain sight after Enola's broken out of jail by her mother and an old friend. They end up fighting the police while Hallelujah plays. I don't know why that made me laugh, but it was kind of appropriate. It was pretty hilarious. And Bessie, it turns out, has to go elsewhere, because now that the woman that was taking care of the house, even though she was working at the match factory too, even though all this was going on, she's got to go live somewhere else with an old coworker. And then she knows, Enola notices these clues in these pots, wondering why in the world? Because there's this red stuff and this white stuff, and it's being studied in these jars. And the white stuff kills. The red stuff doesn't. It's phosphorus, it's not typhus, and it's poisonous, but it's also cheaper as far as matches, and they can make more money off of it. So, step 1, add phosphorus to matches. Step 3, profits. So there you go. And she ends up asking Tewksbury for help. This is after that scene at the ball where she ends up talking to him, and then William shows up because she's trying to get information out of William. And then Cecilia shows up. And Cecilia mentioned something because earlier there was this note that was written to Sarah, and it turned out actually to be that William and Sarah were lovers. And if you want to be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. The Spice Girls were weird. They were weird like that. But the whole point, William and Sarah were gonna expose this whole thing. There were these pieces of missing employee logs because the bosses were trying to hide the fact that all this shit was going on. And Enola recognizes that Cecilia is Sarah, and she tries to get help basically from everybody. William wanted to help because he wanted to expose all the stuff going on. He was found dead, and then all this stuff was staged. The cigar wasn't or smoked recently. All this stuff was staged. He was found killed, like a cutlass was taken across his neck. A sword, by the way, for those who don't know what a cutlass is. And it's Moriarty because, Sherlock's trying to discover all this stuff going on. And then they end up in this theater where there's this music sheet that was kind of used as a map earlier. They find all these clues here. And it turns out that this is all plot where all this evidence was hidden in under one of the chairs, in one of the chairs, in one of the little columns by the chair. And now it's all good, and Sarah takes off her wig, and she's supposed to meet William. She doesn't know William's dead. She's all despondent. Suddenly, Grail shows up with Bessie. All this stuff happens very, very quickly after various chase scenes and various chatty points. And then all this stuff gets revealed. Sherlock was bound and determined to get all this stuff revealed. But before that, everybody gets in separate fights, and you're up on the stage here. Grail and Enola are up like above the stage, and he says, he tried to use a knife, but there was this fake knife that used on Enola, like, one of the knives that just pushes in and everything, like, haha. So he ends up using that, not knowing it's fake, and then hits her with a rope, knocks her out, takes the evidence, and is about to just kill her. He's like, I used to dream that I'd always end up on the stage. And she hangs him up and he slips from the rope and falls and crashes on the stage and dies. Well, then there's this guy that's one of the people in charge of the company, Lord McIntyre, not to be confused with Drew McIntyre, and if you're a non-wrestling fan, you don't know. But the police are in on it, or are they? Sherlock actually did to expose everybody and found out who Moriarty was. It was, Mira Troy. Moriarty, arranged all that and everything. She did it because of classism and sexism, and she wanted her piece of the pie. Floor pie. So anyway, and then after she's arrested, McIntyre says, oops, I accidentally burned the evidence. Nobody can get me now. And then the girls are all despondent. And then it turns out actually they can get him because Tewksbury, is a lord and uses his connections to arrest McIntyre. We get all this stuff going on. We get Sarah giving a rah-rah speech just before this in the factory, like, women, come with me. We have to stand up for this. We can't let them kill us. Boom, boom, boom. They're, stomping their feet, doing all this stuff and everything. And then, that it turns out like all that stuff makes they leave the factory. What are they going to do for money? Who cares? They're going to do something. They're going to get their wages upped and they're going to be in better conditions. That apparently is based on something true. And that's good. That's good. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, if they change the names around to protect the impotent. I think that's how that goes. I've watched a little bit too much Law & Order. And then we get a sequel tease, because after McIntyre gets arrested, an offer is made by Sherlock Holmes and Holmes, but then I'd always be in your shadow. But I'll take on these cases, you take on these cases. We could always team up. And Moriarty escaped. And then there was the idea of a flatmate showing up. A friend for Sherlock. And who is this friend that shows up? Well, come on in, mister. Well, Dr. Watson. And there you go. So I think we're probably going to get a third one. I will say that I don't know if they can do much more after a third one. I think that they will have about extended themselves as far as they could. But we'll see. It might happen next year. It might happen in 2024. It might not happen at all. They might just say, we're done. We'll just leave it at that. Nevertheless, entertaining, B+. I'll give it a B+. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.